Of the top 10 biggest practices in the Smile Doctors Network, there's close to 550 practices now. Of the top 10, 7 are associate run. Let that sink in for just a second. Of the 10 top practices in the Smile Doctors Network, 7 do not have the original doctor running it. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of your 5-Minute Friday. I'm your host, Dr. Glenn Krieger. Just came back from the Smile Doctors annual doctor meeting, close to, I think almost 500 of us now. It's grown pretty well. And of course, while I never ever want to talk anybody into going into an OSO or DSO, I always want you, like I tell my patients when they go for, say, surgical consults, I want you educated. Because unfortunately, the loudest voices in the room are often the least educated. When your patient says they want to go for jaw surgery, but they saw on the internet, blah, 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 you know how frustrated you get. Well, that's how frustrated I get when people state some of the things that they talk about. So just know I'm always here for you as a resource. Even if you don't think you're ready, you just want to have a conversation, I'm always happy to talk to you or point you in the direction of resources that are honest, fair, and will guide you in the right direction. But talking about misunderstanding things, I want to talk about something really quick. This isn't going to take very long. This applies to everybody in the ortho industry because what happens in the OSOs and DSOs is going to trickle down and affect all of us. If you take a look at, let's call it the top 4 or 5 orthodontic companies that are out there, OSOs, you're talking about a very reasonable share of, I would say far more than 10% of all orthodontic practices would be my guess. Some say up to 20 have affiliated, 20%. And of course, there's the haters out there who are going to say, oh, it's terrible for the profession, it's blah, 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 whatever it might be. And every time they come up with some statement that turns out later to not be true, there's another statement. And one of the things you're going to hear a lot out there is that you just wait for the house of cards to fall, because when all of these doctors who get all their equity turns, get all that money, they're all going to retire. Now, I want you to hear that. Okay, because you're going to hear it from a lot of people. And whether you're going to join or not join, it's worth you hearing the conversation about this from a factual perspective. Now, let's just put aside the fact that these same people who are the loud voices and generally the most ignorant on the subject said a couple of years ago, there won't be any equity turns. Oh, but now there will be. There'll be equity turns, and when they make all that money, they're going to all retire. And you just wait till the retired doctors are gone. It's all going to fall apart like a house of cards because there won't be enough people and they're not going to be engaged and it's the original doctor who built it, blah, 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 blah. So I just want to let you know, first of all, having seen hundreds of my quote unquote partners, right? They're all my partners in Smile Doctors because we all have equity. I will tell you to a person, I have not spoken to one person in that group who said when the next equity turn comes, and again, you think of a 5-year life cycle for equity turns in most private equity-backed companies. When the next equity turn comes, I don't know one person who's ready to retire. Not one. Why? Because they enjoy practicing. They just do. Do you enjoy practicing? No? Well, if you got a big pot of money, you probably leave. I have no plans on leaving, nor do most of the people I know, because we enjoy our jobs, we enjoy what we do. But that aside, I want to just share with you one fact. This is a fact spoken by, Scott Law, one of our leaders from the stage the other day. He said, of the top 10 biggest practices in the Smile Doctors Network of over 500, I think it's close to 550 practices now. Of the top 10, 7 are associate run. Let that sink in for just a second. Of the 10 top practices in the Smile Doctors Network, 7 do not have the original doctor running it. So if you're worried about this whole quote unquote house of cards falling, or as I've heard it referred to, the Ponzi scheme, right? Oh, I've heard just the most ridiculous comments made that, no joke, I've sat with private equity people not involved in this who laugh. I show them the comments of sort of the naysayers who look at this. I've shown it to financial planners, knowledgeable financial planners and others. So just know that the comments you're seeing, some do have merit. And I think there's valuable reasons why you wouldn't join a private equity-backed company, whether it's an OSO or DSO. But the overwhelming majority of the conversation is emotionally driven, not factual. And they're typically just wrong. Or somebody has an agenda that they're not disclosing and they're trying to steer you away from them. But just know that for most of us, we believe that there will be a reasonable supply of doctors who are going to want to take these things over. Why? Because financially, there's so many reasons why they should consider doing it, especially earlier in their career. And secondly, at the end of the day, there's proof that the systems that are implemented, right, from smile doctors in general, who has 500 plus doctors who are generally studs and studettes, so to speak, who've built great practices, they incorporate their ideas into the underlying thing, as I suspect most OSOs or DSOs would. And so they end up having these great systems that you can take or leave, but if you allow them to sort of permeate into your practice in some nice ways, you will find yourself becoming more effective. You'll find yourself being more profitable. You'll find yourself having lower stress in the exact same way that hopefully someone here in Orthopreneurs has given you some idea or some thought that has allowed you to live a better lifestyle. The only difference here is there's 550 of us who are together. And so, again, I only did this one to let you know that the OSO DSO conversation where they say it's all going to come tumbling down like a deck of cards or a house of cards, based upon the statistics we see, it's an absolute garbage. And that applies not just to smile doctors, but to every other group that's out there. Now, there are groups that fail, right? There are groups that don't succeed or do as well as they could. And that's why I've always warned you, and I've said this to you, and please pay attention, because there's many, many, many of you out there who message me who did not listen and who did pay the price. But when you're told you're going to be one of the first orthodontists in our group, and you're going to get a 7x turn eventually, first of all, those days are kind of gone. And number two, they're promising you, quote unquote, promising you a high turn because of the risk involved. Here, buy this penny stock. You can make 100x, or you could lose everything. I don't need 100x, right? If you gave me $1 million in equity in 5 years from now, you could give me 2.5 times on that. I'll take that all day long. Because if I get 2.5x in 5 years, in 10 years, I have 6.25, right? If I go another 5 years after that, I have over 14x. So my $1 million at the beginning, through no other work of my own, could grow to 10, 12, 15, $20 million. Now, people will jump on this and start laughing, but we all know the statistics, or maybe we don't. I've quoted them many times. A top 25% private equity fund, not a top 10, not a top 5, not a top 1. A top 25% private equity firm returns on average 23 to 42% per year. If you take the rule of 72, right, that if you divide 72 by your rate of return, that's how many years it takes to double. And you're getting a 36%, which is nearly in the middle, so to speak, of the number I quoted. That means your money's doubling every 2 years. Now, should we expect that? No. But if you were getting 36% on your money, in 2 years you doubled, in 4 years you've quadrupled. We're not expecting that. But at 2.5, you ask most people, they'll say very reasonable, especially in a 5-year time span. So I'm just trying to throw some things out there to you because there's so much garbage out there. Again, you can practice privately the rest of your life and be happy, but don't be scared out of joining a group because of people who are giving you misrepresented facts or untruths. Much love to each and every one of you. I sure hope you're signed up for the final Orthopreneurs Summit ever. Yes, it will be the final Orthopreneurs Summit ever. We're pulling out all the stops. It's going to be amazing. Between Tao Beach Club and Omnia Nightclub and all the speakers we have on stage and the tracks we have running, I figured one of the reasons I'm never going to do it again is because I'll never be able to do better than this year. That's not the reason we're not having any more. But let me tell you, folks, it sure makes me happy to know I don't have to top this group because it's going to be remarkable. Go to opsummit2025.com, and if you need a payment plan to go, we've done that with so many of you out there with no interest, no credit checks or stuff like that. We'd love to have you there, you and your team. opsummit2025.com. Have a wonderful day.